When Evelyn returns home for her grandmother's funeral, she discovers her family has already planned to sell the farmhouse, the one place that ever felt like hers. But her grandmother left more than memories. Hidden letters, secret recordings, and a quiet strength Evelyn didn't know she had will lead to a confrontation that changes everything. Stay until the end. This story will break your heart and put it back together again. What would you do if the only place you felt you truly belonged was about to be taken away by the people you called family? Like, share, and subscribe now to HT Family Drama, family stories that stay with you. Don't forget to turn on notifications for more emotional family stories every week, because sometimes the most powerful stories are the ones we live through or never dare to tell. The first time I noticed the chair missing, I thought it was an accident. It was the corner seat in my grandmother's dining room, the one she always saved for me whenever I came home. But that morning, the morning of her funeral, it wasn't there. The table was set for guests, the silver polished, the china gleaming. Nathan, my older cousin, stood at the head of the table greeting visitors with the same practiced smile he used at his real estate office. Melissa, his wife, floated around pouring coffee like she was hosting a brunch instead of mourning. I stepped into the doorway. "Where's the chair?" I asked. Melissa's eyes flicked to me. "Oh, we rearranged for space. It's in the shed." Her voice was light, but something in her smile made my stomach tighten. Grandma's voice echoed in my memory. "That seat's for you, Evie. Don't let anyone take it." The service was beautiful, at least on the surface. Pastor Lee spoke about Ruth Carter's devotion to the land, her unwavering love for family. I stood there, nodding, clutching the folded program, trying not to think about the last phone call we'd had, her telling me not to let the house go without a fight. After the burial, people drifted back to the farmhouse. The air smelled of coffee and cinnamon. I found myself in the kitchen, my hands wrapped around a mug, when I overheard them. The listing's ready," Nathan was saying, his voice low but urgent. Melissa replied, "If we wait, she'll get wind of it. Better to push it through before she starts asking questions." I froze. They were talking about the farm, Grandma's farm. I stepped into the room. "What listing?" They both turned. Melissa recovered first. "Oh, just some paperwork," Nathan cut in. "Evie, this place is too much for you. We're selling before it becomes a burden." My heart thudded. "You don't have the right." He gave me a pitying look. "Actually, we do. You weren't here. You didn't take care of her in those last months. We did." I wanted to shout that I'd been working 2 jobs in Chicago to pay off student loans, that I'd visited every chance I got, that Grandma understood, but the words stuck in my throat. Instead, I went upstairs to her room. I needed air. That's when I found the envelope. Tucked inside the drawer of her desk, beneath a stack of old letters, was a thick manila envelope with my name in her handwriting. Inside, a copy of her will and a small brass key. Her will was clear. The property at 14 Meadow Lane is not to be sold without the express in-person consent of my granddaughter, Evelyn Carter, in the presence of 2 witnesses. I sat back, breath shaking. They couldn't sell it without me, and they knew it. The key was labeled only for the truth. That night I drove back to my apartment in silence, the envelope in my lap. Grandma had known this was coming. She'd left me a way to fight, and I wasn't going to let her down. The brass key was warm in my palm, though I knew it was just from my grip. It was small, the kind you might use for a jewelry box or a desk drawer. And yet, it felt heavier than anything I'd ever held. I turned it over, tracing the grooves, remembering how Grandma used to tuck little surprises into odd places. A $20 bill inside the sugar canister, a postcard wedged between cookbooks. Once, even a letter sealed in wax, hidden behind the frame of our family photo. This key wasn't for something ordinary. I could feel it. The next morning, I drove back to the farm before sunrise. The gravel crunched under my tires, loud in the early quiet. Nathan's truck wasn't there, but Melissa's SUV sat crooked near the barn, Lights glowed in the kitchen window. I didn't go inside. Instead, I went straight to the workshop at the far end of the property. Grandma's thinking place, as she called it. She'd kept it locked ever since I was little, claiming it was too messy for guests. I tried the key. It slid in easily, turning with a soft click. The smell hit me first. Cedar shavings, old varnish, and the faint sweetness of dried lavender. Dust motes swirled in the beams of sunlight slicing through the slatted windows. The room was exactly as I remembered. Stacks of boxes, shelves lined with jars of buttons and nails, her old Singer sewing machine in the corner. But in the center, beneath a drop cloth, was something I'd never seen. I pulled the cloth away. A wooden chest, worn smooth at the edges, sat on the table. The lock gleamed faintly. The key in my hand fit perfectly. Inside, neatly tied bundles of envelopes filled the space. Each one was labeled with a year, starting from 1978. Beneath them, a leather-bound notebook. I opened it to the first page. If they're reading this, it means they're trying to take the house. I knew this day would come. These are the receipts, letters, and records they'll never want the court to see. Keep them safe. They're your proof, Evie, and your shield. Her handwriting was steady, deliberate. My throat tightened. She'd prepared for this. She'd been fighting a quiet battle long before I even knew there was one. I spent the next 2 hours photographing everything. Property appraisals, bank records, and even handwritten notes about conversations with Nathan and Melissa. All dated, all meticulous. And then I found it. Taped to the inside lid of the chest was a cassette tape in a clear plastic case. A yellowed label read simply, "For Evie." I didn't have a player, but I knew someone who did. Mr. Everett, the retired lawyer who'd lived next door to Grandma for 40 years. When I knocked on his door, he answered in a cardigan, his glasses perched low on his nose. "Evelyn Carter," he said, smiling faintly. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "Maybe I have," I said, holding out the tape. "Can you play this?" He ushered me into his study where a dusty cassette deck sat on the bookshelf. The tape clicked into place, and after a moment of static, her voice filled the room. "Evie, sweetheart. If you're hearing this, it means they're trying to erase you. And if they're doing that, they're trying to erase me, too. Don't let them. You are the keeper of the flame. Every Carter before you has had one, and now it's yours. It's more than a house. It's the heart of who we are, and I know you'll protect it." My vision blurred. The warmth in her voice cut through the ache in my chest, and for the first time since the funeral, I felt something stronger than grief. I felt purpose. Mr. Everett leaned back. "She always said you had her grit. Looks like she was right." I swallowed hard. "They've already started the process to sell. They think I won't fight." His eyes sharpened. "Then you'll need more than sentiment. You'll need leverage." I smiled faintly, pulling the phone from my bag. Good thing she left me exactly that. By the time I left his house, I had a plan forming. The will's clause, the documented records, the tape, they were pieces of a puzzle. But I still needed to know how far Nathan and Melissa had gone, and for that, I'd have to walk straight into their territory. The farmhouse looked different in the late afternoon light, warmer, softer. But I knew it was a trick, like a smile hiding clenched teeth. Nathan's truck and Melissa's SUV sat in the driveway. The kitchen curtains were drawn, though a thin strip of light leaked from the edges. I could hear faint voices inside, the low hum of conversation broken by the occasional laugh. They sounded comfortable. Too comfortable. I tightened my grip on the tote bag slung over my shoulder. Inside were copies of the will, photos of Grandma's documents, and the phone with recordings of the tape and my own notes. I wasn't ready to play all my cards, but I wanted them to know I had a hand worth fearing. I didn't knock. I stepped right into the kitchen. Melissa turned from the counter, startled, a glass of wine in her hand. Nathan sat at the table, scrolling through his phone. "What are you doing here?" Nathan's tone was sharp, territorial. "Checking on my grandmother's house?" I said evenly. since it's still mine. Melissa's laugh was brittle. Oh, come on, Evelyn. We told you. We've got buyers lined up. This place needs too much work. It's better for everyone. Better for you, maybe, I said. I set the tote bag on the table, slowly, deliberately. Grandma's will says otherwise. Nathan's eyes narrowed. You think a piece of paper changes reality? We've been taking care of this place, paying the bills. Where were you? I met his gaze. In Chicago, working, sending Grandma money every month. You want the receipts? I have them. Just like I have proof you've been swapping out her belongings for cheaper replacements. Melissa froze. Nathan's expression flickered, a crack in his composure. I found the original silver tea set, I went on, in a pawn shop, with a receipt bearing your name, Melissa. Want to explain that? Her voice rose, defensive. We needed cash for repairs. That's funny, I cut in, because I also found the repair invoices. None of them mention silver or paintings or the antique quilt you donated to the Historical Society. Nathan stood, his chair scraping the floor. You're making accusations you can't back up. I smiled, slow and steady. Oh, I can back them up. And when I do, the court's not just going to stop your sale. They're going to ask a lot of questions you don't want answered. Melissa's eyes darted to Nathan. For a moment, no one spoke. I leaned forward. You're not just selling a house, you're dismantling a life. Grandma trusted you, and you betrayed that. I can forgive a lot, Nathan, but not that. His voice softened, almost pleading. Evie, you don't understand. This place, it's too much. The taxes, the upkeep, we're drowning. Then you should have talked to me, I said, not tried to erase me. I picked up the tote bag. You have 1 week. After that, this goes to my lawyer, and trust me, he won't be as polite as I've been. As I walked out, Melissa called after me. You think you're the hero here? You're just delaying the inevitable. I paused at the door, looking back over my shoulder. No, I'm keeping a promise. The sky was deep orange as I drove away, the sun slipping behind the hills. I thought of Grandma's voice on the tape, her quiet certainty that I'd be the keeper of the flame. And for the first time, I believed her. The next morning, I was sitting in a small corner booth at Donovan's Cafe, my laptop open, stacks of papers spread across the table. The coffee had gone cold an hour ago, but I didn't care. Every page I scanned, every note I typed, made the fog in my head lift a little more. Alan Mercer, a family attorney recommended by Mr. Everett, sat across from me. His suit was rumpled, his tie slightly askew, but his eyes were sharp. All right, he said, tapping the will I'd handed him. This clause is gold. If your grandmother's signature and the witness statements hold, they can't sell without you. But we need more than that if we're going to win outright. I slid the notebook across the table, Grandma's records of Nathan and Melissa's transactions. Alan flipped through, whistling softly. She was meticulous, he said. Bank statements, dates, even the names of buyers. This is exactly what we need. We spent the next hour making a list. Potential witnesses. Mrs. Dorsey, Grandma's oldest friend, who'd often visited during her last months. Pastor Lee, who knew Grandma's feelings about the farm better than anyone. Mr. Everett, with his knowledge of the property's history and my grandmother's voice on tape. Physical evidence, pawn shop receipts, the swapped-out silver set and paintings, the original repair invoices, the cassette recording. When we finished, Alan leaned back. This is a strong case, Evelyn, but it's going to get ugly. They'll come after you, try to paint you as the absentee granddaughter. I know, I said. Let them try. He studied me for a moment. Most people fold in situations like this. I met his gaze. Most people didn't make a promise to Ruth Carter. That afternoon, we started the groundwork. I drove to Mrs. Dorsey's small white cottage on the edge of town. She answered in a faded floral apron, her eyes widening when she saw me. Evelyn, oh, honey, I was wondering when you'd come by. I told her what was happening. Her hands tightened on the edge of the doorframe. She told me they might try something, Mrs. Dorsey said. She said you were the only one she trusted to keep the place. She nodded firmly. You can put my name down. I'll tell the judge exactly what she told me. Next was Pastor Lee. He met me in his office, lined with worn books and the faint scent of old cedar. Ruth spoke often about the farm, he said. It wasn't just land to her. It was memory, heritage, love. She wanted it passed to you as it was. No sales, no changes. When I asked if he'd testify, he didn't hesitate. Of course, it's the truth. By the time I got home, my phone buzzed with a text from Alan. Got the handwriting analysis back. Signature on the sale documents is a forgery. 99% match to Nathan's writing patterns. My pulse kicked up. One piece at a time, the puzzle was coming together. I should have felt victorious. But that night, lying awake in the dark, I thought of Nathan. We'd grown up side by side, climbing the same apple trees, fishing in the same creek. I remembered him teaching me how to skip rocks, how to ride a bike without training wheels. And now, this. It was like watching a bridge burn from both ends. The next morning, I pulled into the courthouse parking lot for the first preliminary hearing. Nathan and Melissa were already there, standing with a man in a dark suit. Melissa wore a smile that didn't touch her eyes. Nathan avoided looking at me. Alan met me at the steps. "Ready?" he asked. I thought of Grandma's tape, her voice steady and sure. "You are the keeper of the flame." "Yes," I said, "let's do this." The courtroom was smaller than I expected. No soaring ceilings, no echoing marble halls, just rows of wooden benches, scuffed floors, and a judge's bench that loomed in a way that made my stomach twist. Nathan and Melissa sat at the table opposite mine. Their lawyer, a tall, sharp-eyed man named Harris, flipping through a stack of papers. Melissa's hair was perfectly curled, her pearl earrings catching the light. Nathan wore the same navy suit he used to wear to church, the one Grandma had given him years ago. The irony was almost too much. Alan leaned over. "Stay calm, Evelyn. Let them speak first. The more rope they take, the more they'll hang themselves." I nodded, clutching the pen in my hand like it might anchor me. Judge Reynolds entered, his robe swishing as he took his seat. "We're here to address the petition to sell the property at 14 Meadow Lane. Counsel, you may proceed." Harris stood, voice smooth. "Your Honor, my clients have been the primary caretakers of the Meadow Lane property for the past 2 years. The upkeep is costly, the taxes are overdue, and the home has fallen into disrepair. My clients believe selling the property is in the best interest of the family." He gestured toward me. "Unfortunately, Ms. Carter, while listed in the will, has not been present to assist with the maintenance or expenses. Her refusal to agree to the sale is preventing the property from being used to its full potential." I could feel my jaw tighten. Alan rose. "Your Honor, the will is clear. The property cannot be sold without Ms. Carter's explicit consent in the presence of 2 witnesses. That clause was not an afterthought. It was the late Mrs. Carter's explicit intent." He walked to the judge's bench, holding up the will. "We have the original, signed and witnessed with notarization intact. Furthermore, we have evidence that my client did, in fact, contribute financially to the upkeep of the property through direct payments to Mrs. Carter." He glanced at me, then at Nathan and Melissa. "And we have reason to believe there has been an attempt to circumvent this clause through fraudulent signatures and the unauthorized removal of assets from the home." Melissa shifted in her seat. Nathan's eyes stayed fixed on the table. Judge Reynolds frowned. "Fraudulent signatures?" Alan nodded. "Yes, Your Honor. We submitted a handwriting analysis yesterday. The signature on the preliminary sale agreement matches Mr. Nathan Carter's handwriting with 99% certainty. Additionally, several valuable items from the home were pawned or sold in the weeks before Mrs. Carter's passing. We have receipts tying these transactions to Mrs. Melissa Carter." Gasps rippled through the benches behind us. Harris jumped in, his voice suddenly tight. "Your Honor, these claims are unfounded." "Are they?" Alan interrupted smoothly. He held up a photo, the silver tea set, polished and gleaming in the display case at Carter's Antiques, the pawn shop owner's statement attached. This was a family heirloom, sold by Mrs. Carter, Melissa, 2 months before Ruth Carter's death. And here, he slid another document forward, is the receipt signed. Melissa's cheeks flushed. That was for repairs. Alan didn't let her finish. Repairs that, according to the invoices, were never made. The judge turned to Nathan. "Mr. Carter, is this true?" Nathan's jaw worked, but no words came out. Alan continued, voice calm but firm. "Your Honor, we also have an audio recording made by Mrs. Carter shortly before her death. In it, she states clearly that she wished for the property to remain in Evelyn Carter's care and that she anticipated attempts to take it away. This recording, along with the documents we've presented, shows a clear intent to violate the will's terms." The judge sat back, steepling his fingers. "I'm placing a temporary hold on any sale of the property. We'll reconvene in 2 weeks to review the evidence in full. In the meantime, no items are to be removed from the premises." The gavel came down with a sharp crack. As we gathered our things, Nathan finally looked at me. There was no warmth in his eyes now, only something hard, like stone. "This isn't over, Evie," he muttered. I met his gaze. "You're right. It's just getting started." Outside the courthouse, the air felt sharper, cleaner. Alan clapped me on the shoulder. "That was a good first strike. Now we hit harder." I thought of Grandma's voice again, steady, certain. "Keep the flame burning." And for the first time, I could almost feel her standing beside me. 2 days after the hearing, I was back in Grandma's workshop, sifting through the chest again. I'd gone through every envelope twice already, but something kept nagging at me, a feeling that I'd missed something. Grandma was deliberate. If she'd left the will, the key, and the tape, she'd have left one more thing. The real clincher. I pulled the bundles of envelopes out, setting them aside. That's when I noticed a faint line along the bottom of the chest. Not a scratch, but a seam. My pulse quickened. I ran my fingers along the edge until I found it. A tiny notch, just big enough for a fingernail. I pried gently, and the false bottom popped loose. Inside was a slim leather-bound ledger. The pages were filled with columns of numbers in Grandma's neat handwriting, income, expenses, and withdrawals. But these weren't hers. The handwriting on the withdrawal slips was Nathan's. Dates, amounts, thousands of dollars taken from the farm's account over the past 2 years. And worse, some of the deposits went into an account under Melissa's maiden name. I snapped photos of every page, then called Alan. "You just found the nail in their coffin," he said when I told him. "If we can prove those funds were siphoned for personal use, it's not just fraud, it's embezzlement." "Can we?" I asked. "Oh, we can," he said, and I could hear the satisfaction in his voice. "Meet me at the bank tomorrow morning." The next day, we sat across from the bank manager, a cautious man in a gray suit who kept glancing toward the door like he expected someone to walk in. Alan laid the ledger on the desk. "These withdrawals," Alan said, tapping the pages, "line up with transaction records from this branch. We need the official statements." The manager hesitated. "That would require a court order." Alan slid a folded paper across the desk. "Good thing we have one." By noon, we had everything. The statements showed the money funneled into a personal investment account that had nothing to do with the farm. Nathan and Melissa had been using Grandma's assets to fund a vacation property in Florida, complete with mortgage payments and home renovations. It was worse than I thought. It wasn't just about the house. It was about betrayal on a scale I could barely comprehend. That night, I drove past the farmhouse. The lights were on in the kitchen. Through the window, I could see Nathan at the table, his hands gesturing sharply as he talked to Melissa. She looked shaken. Maybe she'd heard about the bank visit. I parked down the road and sat there in the dark, the engine off, just watching. I thought of all the birthdays we'd celebrated in that kitchen, all the summer nights with fireflies blinking in the yard. I thought of Grandma at the stove, humming to herself, her apron dusted with flour, and I thought of the ledger in my bag. The truth, written in ink they couldn't erase. Alan called me the next morning. I filed a motion to introduce the financial evidence at the next hearing. Once the judge sees it, this won't just block the sale. It could open a criminal case. I exhaled slowly. So this could end it. This, he said, will end it. But ending it wasn't enough. I wanted them to face Grandma's truth, not just in court, but in their hearts. I wanted them to hear her words, the way I had, and I knew exactly how to make that happen. The courthouse was full that morning, not just with lawyers and family members, but with neighbors, old friends of Grandma's, and even a few reporters from the local paper. Word had gotten out that the Carter family feud was coming to a head. I walked in with Alan, the leather ledger tucked under my arm. Nathan and Melissa were already at their table. Nathan's jaw was set, Melissa's expression tight. Harris, their lawyer, gave me a look that was half irritation, half apprehension. Judge Reynolds entered, his gavel cracking the room into silence. "All right," he said, settling in. "Let's hear the new evidence." Alan began by laying out the financial trail. Every withdrawal, every deposit, every mortgage payment on the Florida property. The statements were projected on a screen for the entire room to see. Each time a date appeared, I could see Nathan stiffen. Melissa glanced down at her hands. Then came the pawn shop receipts, the forgery analysis, and the witness statements. By the time Alan finished, the air in the courtroom felt heavy, like a storm pressing against the windows. "Your Honor," Alan said, "this is not simply a case of family disagreement. It is a deliberate attempt to defraud the estate of Ruth Carter and erase the rightful heir's claim. We ask that the petition to sell be denied, the property be transferred fully to my client, and that the court refer the financial matter to the district attorney." Harris stood, trying to recover ground. "Your Honor, while the financial matters are unfortunate, my clients maintain that they acted in what they believe to be the best interest." "That's enough," Judge Reynolds cut in, his tone sharp. "The evidence speaks for itself." He turned to me. "Ms. Carter, before I make my ruling, do you have anything you wish to say?" I swallowed, then rose. "Yes, Your Honor, I do." I reached into my bag and pulled out the cassette player I'd borrowed from Mr. Everett. A soft murmur went through the room. I placed it on the table in front of me. "This," I said, "is my grandmother's voice. She made this recording for me, but I think everyone here should hear it." The judge nodded. "Proceed." I pressed play. Static crackled. Then her voice filled the room. Warm, steady, unmistakable. "Evie, sweetheart, if you're hearing this, it means they're trying to erase you. And if they're doing that, they're trying to erase me too. Don't let them. You are the keeper of the flame. Every Carter before you has had one, and now it's yours. It's more than a house. It's the heart of who we are, and I know you'll protect it." When the tape ended, the room was silent. Melissa blinked rapidly, her lips pressed together. Nathan stared at the table, his face unreadable. I looked at them both. "She trusted you, and you broke that trust. This isn't just about land, it's about family history and the promise I made to her. I'm keeping it." Judge Reynolds cleared his throat. "In light of the overwhelming evidence, the court denies the petition to sell. Ownership of the property at 14 Meadow Lane is hereby granted in full to Ms. Evelyn Carter. Furthermore, the financial records will be referred to the district attorney's office for review." The gavel came down, and just like that, it was over. Outside, the air felt brighter, lighter, as though the weight pressing on my chest had finally lifted. People I hadn't seen in years came up to shake my hand, to say Grandma would be proud. Alan smiled. "You didn't just win a case, Evelyn. You kept the flame." That night, I sat on the porch of the farmhouse, the same creaky boards under my feet, the same view of the rolling fields turning gold in the sunset. The house was quiet, but it felt full, like she was still here, just inside, humming in the kitchen. I thought of all the battles we'd fought, the lies, the court dates, the evidence pieced together like threads in a quilt, and I thought of her words. It's more than a house. It's the heart of who we are. I smiled through the tears. I kept it, Grandma. I kept it.